The single highest ranking credit related question on Google right now is, what credit score do I need to buy a house? Hey guys, Orbel here. In today's episode, we're going to discuss what the minimum credit score requirement is in order for you to apply for a home loan. But more importantly, we're going to discuss how credit works and what you guys need to know. Alright, so earlier in the video I mentioned that the highest ranking credit related question on Google was, what credit score do I need to buy a house? So this made me realize that a lot of people have either a fear of what their credit score is and that they're not going to qualify, or they just don't know what their credit score is and they don't know what to anticipate if they were to apply. Now, before I get into what the credit score minimum requirement is, it's important that we break down what credit is and how it actually works. Your credit score and your credit report is made up of information from a bunch of different sources. But the best way to break it down is that we have three credit bureaus. We have Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Now, these credit bureaus are given information from your trade lines. Your trade line accounts are your credit cards, any line of credit that's reflected on your credit report is a trade line. And these trade lines report information back to these three credit bureaus, I believe every 30 to 40 days. Don't quote me on this. I could be a little off on the dates, but pretty much within a 1 month or 2 month range, they report to these three credit bureaus. And what these credit bureaus do is that they take this information from all corners, right? From all the trade lines and everything else that they have access to. And they come up with not only a FICO score, but they put together a whole profile. And that's your credit report. Your credit report can have your date of birth, it can have your occupation, it could have your current address and your past address. It can have a bunch of stuff on there. So if you have three credit scores, right? Three FICO scores, which FICO score does the bank qualify you with? They take the middle FICO score. So if you have a 720, a 725, and a 730, they're going to qualify you with 725. In very rare cases, people don't have one of these credit bureaus and they only have two of them showing. So in that case, they'll just go with the lower of the two FICO scores and they'll qualify you with that. Up to now, we've discussed who the credit bureaus are and how they collect their information. But now I want to bring up these two bottom points that I have listed down here that are really important for you guys to know in my opinion. The first one is hard pull versus soft pull. Now, when people come to apply for a home loan and we pull their credit, sometimes they'll notice that there's a difference in what we see versus what they see on maybe their banking mobile app that tells them their credit score, or if they have a Credit Karma, what the Credit Karma tells them. And the reason why there's this discrepancy is because what your banking app shows you or what Credit Karma shows you is considered to be a soft pull. Now, a soft pull is something that just very lightly covers your credit report. It just confirms credit trade lines. It confirms if there's been a new account added. It generally, if your credit is moving in the right direction. But a mortgage credit pull is going to be a hard pull. They're going to look much deeper. It's going to pull much harder than a soft pull does. And like I mentioned earlier, whenever you apply for a home loan, these credit reports show you past addresses, current addresses, date of birth, occupation, sometimes all sorts of information on there. So you can imagine why there could be a discrepancy in what you see on your phone and in your apps versus what we see whenever we pull your credit. The second point I want to bring up is credit bureau freezes and trade line disputes. Now, keep in mind, anytime you have a dispute or a credit bureau freeze, let's say there's something that's reported on your credit report that you don't agree with, and you call in and you freeze that credit bureau or you dispute something on your credit report, that trade line or that credit bureau stops reporting at that moment correctly. It's reporting, but it's reporting on what it was that day pretty much. It's not going to report up-to-date information. Now, the reason why this is important to note is because if you're going in to apply for a home loan, let's say 6 months from now, and you know that you have these things lingering on your credit report, you have enough time right now to call, unfreeze it, to resolve whatever the disputes are on your credit report, get this all over with so that whenever your credit is pulled for your home application, this stuff doesn't come up. Because whenever it comes up, one, you can't move forward with it. Disputes have to come off and credit bureaus have to be unfrozen. And guess what happens? When they've been frozen for a year or for months or whatever the case is, and you call and unfreeze it, temporarily it usually goes down. I mean, I'm not a credit specialist here, and by no means do I do credit repair, but this is just stuff that I've seen in my experience. From the time it was frozen or disputed up until the day that you call to change that, there's a bunch of stuff that was never reported. So temporarily it could plummet, it could go down. You don't want this to happen right when you're going in to apply for a home loan. So if you, right now, you know that you have one of these problems and you're going to be applying for a home loan, this is something that's definitely in your control. You could call and get this taken care of and move forward with peace of mind. And even if your credit score isn't what you wanted it to be, at least you know that it's better than what it was going to be. These are the 2 points that I want to bring to you guys' attention. So now let's jump into what the credit score minimum requirement is. Now, with FHA, you have 2 options. You could go as low as 500 for a credit score if you're putting up to 10% down, or you could go as low as 580 if you're putting 3.5% down. And if you're going with a conventional loan, you could go as low as 620. Now, the reason why I don't stress these FICO score limits too much is because for example, let's start with the FHAs. FHA, these requirements are set by the FHA. So just because the FHA is saying that this is what they require and this is what their limit is, it doesn't mean that the bank is going to be okay with it. Right now, it's actually a great time to use this example. With coronavirus happening and all this uncertainty, like I mentioned in past videos, banks have added additional overlays, which they're just tightening up their requirements. So there's a lot of banks out there right now that are saying, hey, it's cool. I know the FHA is saying that they're going to allow some applicant to have a credit score of 500 or 580 or whatever the case is. But you know what? We're not going to take an applicant unless they're 620, even if they want to go FHA. So that just shows you that what the ultimate lowest FICO score isn't what you should be worried about, or anybody for that matter of fact, whoever is searching for these answers. What you want to figure out is what's in your control to fix so that when time comes, you're not worried about being at the ultimate lowest, That's my personal opinion. Now, these 2 points that I brought up are FHA minimum requirements, FICO requirements. So if you're just applying for a conventional, traditional mortgage, a regular mortgage, what's the minimum for that? The minimum for that is 620. But again, who sets the limit for the 620? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So that shows you again that there could be a discrepancy on what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac requires versus what the banks are going to be okay with. So the bank may not lend at 620, even though that's the lowest that somebody could apply with. They may have 660 or 700 or whatever the case is. The best way to figure out what the credit requirement is whenever you're actually going in to apply for a home loan, at that time to figure out what the current state of home loans are during that period of time. But that's my opinion. So with all that said, the main takeaway from this video is that there's going to be certain things that are always going to be outside of your control, like guideline updates or what the minimum requirement for a FICO score is. These things are out of your control. But what you should take away from this video is that there's things that are totally in your control, like working in a timely fashion and removing these things and making sure that your credit report is reporting correctly. Those are the things that you could control, and that's the best way you could set yourself up for success when you plan on applying for a home loan. But aside from that, if you guys have any questions, like always, feel free to reach out and we could go over your specific scenario. And aside from that, thank you so much for joining in, and I'll see you guys next week.